Hi everyone, welcome to Blanc les Words, where we are at the manufacturer of Vacheron Constantin today. It is a beautiful spring day and we are sitting here with our good friend Christian Selmoni, who is the Director of Style and Heritage, and he's going to be having a little chat with us about all about retrograde and how it is such an important feature of Vacheron Constantin's heritage and also a key feature in this year's new timepieces. Isn't that right, Christian?
Absolutely. So welcome, Suzanne. It's great to have you with us here in Blanc les Words. And yes, you are right. We are going to talk about retrograde displays.
So take us a bit back to the beginning because we want to have a little bit of context before we get to the good stuff. Obviously, retrograde and retrograde displays has a long history as something exceptionally refined and elegant as a method of timekeeping expression at Vacheron Constantin. Tell us about the beginnings of the retrograde display at Vacheron Constantin.
With pleasure. So, as a matter of fact, the very first retrograde systems at Vacheron Constantin appeared during the 20s. During the Art Deco era, notably on beautiful Art Deco desk clocks that had these retrograde systems. And we have been implementing a retrograde date indication 1 decade later. We started to create a bespoke timepiece in 1935 with a minute repeater, 31 days retrograde calendar. And this watch is quite famous, as it is the nickname Don Pen Show. And according to watch experts, the Don Pen Show could be the very first wristwatch which incorporates a 31 days retrograde calendar. So it was a highly important timepiece for Vacheron Constantin and for potentially the whole watchmaking.
Yes, definitely a real milestone. Why do you think the retrograde display became so popular this time? Because as you mentioned, it's the Art Deco period. Is it something cultural to do with like expressions, the way people wanted to express themselves in a bit more artistic or a bit more whimsical kind of way, perhaps?
Yeah, I think if we turn our eyes to the Art Deco era, so what do we see? So we see it was a decade, the 20s, of extreme creativity, and not only in watchmaking, but as you know, in architecture, in arts in general, in many, many different aspects. And so I think creators, they were really experimenting new solutions, new ways to basically tell the time, for example, for us. So in fact, these systems really arrived during the 20s, I think, because it was a highly creative decade. So that I think this is the main reason.
It's clear to see that the retrograde display is something with a lot of rich cultural history, especially in watchmaking. What does it mean to Vacheron Constantin in the modern context?
Yes. So to talk about our, I would say, retrograde displays, so it's quite interesting to know that all right, so we made watches during the 20s, also we made during the 30s and the 40s, but surprisingly, retrograde display almost disappeared from our watches. And we came back with the retrograde systems in the first half of the 1990s through the Mercator timepiece, which was a double retrograde, hours and minutes retrograde timepiece. And I would say 3 years later on the Saltarello, which was combining a jumping hour and a retrograde minutes. So that was for us the comeback of retrograde systems. But to carry on with the history or the recent history of Vacheron Constantin and retrograde displays, the very first, I would say, modern Vacheron Constantin wristwatch that had a 31 days retrograde calendar was launched in the year 2000. It was reference 47245. And well, I would say that this one has been really the, if I may say, the inspirational piece for what we are going to present today. Last point I would like to mention, Suzanne, about the history of retrograde Vacheron Constantin is that since 2007, we have implemented the retrograde systems in our watches, especially, I would say, on the Patrick collection with the Patrimony Day and Date retrograde from 2007. And since we are developing this technical signature, which is really very much associated with the universe of Vacheron Constantin.
I like that you mentioned that it's a technical signature because a lot of people would assume that the retrograde display, because it says display, it's just an aesthetic thing, but it's not just an aesthetic thing at all. It is highly technical, as you mentioned, and it does take quite a lot of expertise in order to implement in a really sort of refined and elegant way, because the motion of the jump has to be very carefully calibrated so that it looks beautiful and elegant when you have the backwards and forwards motion, especially when you come back to zero. The speed of the jump, the speed of the reset, the little jumps as it goes between like indications if it's not a dragging motion, for example. These all are aspects of the watch, of the movements that need to be very, very carefully regulated and adjusted by a trained and very skilled expert watchmaker so that you have the perfect effect, as you would see in some of the watches of Vacheron Constantin.
Yeah, you're right, Suzanne. So you're absolutely right. So what I would like to add to your comment also that, well, also I think these systems, especially for a day display, gives you, I think, much more readability on the watch face. Because you no longer express the 31 days in a subdial,
Exactly.
but rather on let's say on a half part of the watch face.
Yes, so it's very intuitive actually,
Very much.
because you can see how far through the month you are, how far through the week, for example.
Right.
And like when it's going to the end of the hour, you think TGIF, hooray, it's the weekend soon. It's a time to celebrate.
So much for you.
So tell us a bit about why the retrograde display has been chosen to be the highlight, the focus of Vacheron Constantin at this year's Watches and Wonders.
Yes, so as you know, Suzanne, so we are developing all our movements in-house. And considering the fact that the retrograde is a technical signature of Vacheron Constantin, we wanted to really develop the signature through different designs and through different collections. And so we have decided to choose the year 2023 to introduce retrograde systems in 3 different collections that we are going to discover today.
Let's start at the very top of this pyramid, because you've given me a slight little hint of what to expect. I'm very excited to dive straight into the watches. We're talking about the traditionnel, something with a complication, something actually very, very prestigious at the top of the Vacheron Constantin watchmaking pyramid. Tell us about this.
Yes. So I would say on my side, a very spectacular novelty this year, very technical. So this is the traditional tourbillon open face with retrograde days. So this is a very interesting design, because our designers they took their inspiration from the traditional twin bit that you know very well.
Exactly.
And in fact, we have a very sophisticated dial, which consists in 4 parts. And it's a mix of white gold, which is decorated by hand guillochage, and we have a sapphire crystal, and a lot of sophistication in the construction. So it's a very difficult, very difficult dial to realize. And the idea behind is really to, as the name suggests, open face is really to open the watch face and let the owner or the client or the watch lovers basically to see the retrograde mechanism working, and every part, every component would be visible. And so not only you can see the complexity of the system, but in addition you may admire as well the beautiful hand finishings that we do on our movements. But this is not all. So in addition, of course, we have a tourbillon. And so this timepiece is based on our existing tourbillon 2160, which is thin and has a peripheral rotor. And the 31 days calendar is added on the base movement, but we have only half of a millimeter more of thickness compared with the regular tourbillon, and that has been possible thanks to clever engineering. In a sense, then when our engineers developed the 2160, they thought about implementing potentially in the future some other functions on this timepiece. And so the mechanism is half integrated in the plate of the 2160. So we could reduce the total thickness of the movement close to 1 millimeter, so 0.9 millimeter thinner than a classic construction. So that helps a lot to create a very elegant timepiece, 41 millimeter diameter and 11 millimeter of total thickness.
That's extraordinary what you said, that you have this achievement of creating a watch with such high visual and mechanical complexity that is still very wearable. And I have to say that when you evoked the aesthetic of the twin beat, that's something I love so much, because when people look at the traditionnel collection, they think of something that's quite formal, you know, and a bit more conservative in terms of how the design works. But with the layering of the sapphire crystal, as you said, you see some elements which are floating. The watch actually appears very light. And the thinness of this also helps to keep it on the wrist, even though this is, and it brings the focus onto the amazing visual display that you have on the dial itself.
Yeah, you got it, Suzanne. So on my side, what I really love in this traditional open face watches is the fact that we really create a tension between the, you know, as you were mentioning, the traditional, the kind of formal design of the case, very Geneva-like, and this modernity that we are creating thanks to the use of sapphire with the laser engraved indication, which are inked then. And you see, so this is really the tension between classic and modern, which is so interesting in this timepiece as well.
Now, sort of moving on to something with a touch more nostalgia, I think we have something quite interesting, and honestly, I think it's my favorite amongst the new watches from Vacheron Constantin this year, something in the patrimony collection.
Yes, we have. So, we are presenting a new version of the Patrimony Day-Date Retrograde. So this is a timepiece which exists already in the Patrimony lineup, and this is one of the most recognizable Patrimony, I would say. And this year we have decided to present this new version in our, I would say, I would use the word capsule. So this is a capsule collection that we launched last year, which in fact consists of combining platinum case and salmon colored dial. So we have other things other features in this capsule, meaning we have a blued steel hands, some dark blue prints, and a dark blue alligator strap as well. So this is really a collection in the collection, and this is also a design signature as well. And this capsule that we have been launching last year with the traditional perpetual calendar chronograph. So this is something which is going to be transverse, meaning this is a signature that we will see in other collections. And this year we are launching this capsule within the Patrimony collection. So I think it's a great addition, because the timepiece, I would say, especially I would say the work that has been done on the dial is just amazing, in the sense that we have a very delicate sunburst on which we have the salmon color, and it really creates a very interesting version of the Patrimony Day-Date Retrograde.
I think it's an amazing aesthetic, this contrast between the platinum case, the salmon dial, which looks so warm and beautiful, and as you said, finished in the sun ray sort of pattern, which gives this almost warm glow.
Very much.
And then combined with the double retrograde indications, which is spectacular to watch once it's in action. And it's extremely fine and elegant on the wrist as well, because of course, this is what the Patrimony collection is all about. It's about that contemporary elegance and sort of timeless, but also with that touch of color, which I know you're a big fan of, using color in like really special and creative ways, giving that little touch of flair to the wrist, you know, playing with color a bit.
Oh, true.
And lest you guys think that the retrograde display is something that should only be reserved for really high-end or really formal or kind of really exalted pieces, kind of quite exclusive and elite, that's not the case at all, is it? Because we do see it in everyday watches, something that you can wear in a very versatile, like quotidian way.
Fully agree. So you are talking obviously about the new overseas retrograde date and moon phases. So on my side, I would say what I think, I don't know what you think about, Suzanne, but I think it's quite interesting. It's a quite unexpected complication in a sports elegant timepiece. Because usually, as we know, in sport elegant timepieces, you would see complications like chronograph, dual time, world time, things like that. And as we know, we see more and more, I would say, like traditional complications that were historically more on classic watches with gold or platinum cases on strap. But I think the interest for sport elegant watches is still so strong that we see more and more complications that are not immediately associated with this kind of aesthetics. And I think it's a great combination, because we are introducing this 31 days retrograde calendar on the upper half of the dial. And we have the precision moon phase, which is at 6 o'clock. And great work has been made by our designers in order to even go, to go beyond what we have made before, considering the blue dial, because this combination of complications offered us the possibility to express ourselves with this very blue signature blue color overseas, and we have like tone on tone hints, etc. And I think it's something which is well, it's a great addition for me in the overseas lineup, and for me this is one of my favorite novelties for Vacheron Constantin for sure.
I think it really provides the answer to the question we sometimes ask ourselves, which is, does fine watchmaking have a place in everyday modern life? And the overseas definitely answers that with a resounding yes.
Yeah, very much. And on top of that, Suzanne, so you were mentioning it, so versatility. So we have our self-interchangeability system, so that offers you the possibility to change the aesthetics of the timepiece, changing from the steel bracelet to rubber, and from rubber to leather strap. So it gives you plenty of possibilities to wear a timepiece in different occasions in a day or in a life.
So thank you so much, Christian, for taking us through the new watches of Vacheron Constantin at Watches and Wonders 2023. I think you've truly shown us how the retrograde display, something that's so simple and elegantly beautiful, can go from the very top of the watchmaking pyramid to something that can be worn on an everyday basis. And I think this is what we absolutely want to hear. Thank you so much for joining us today. Once more, we are at Vacheron Constantin, manufacturer in Geneva. And see you guys very, very soon.